This brief presentation is going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about assignment, and we're going to talk about using the message box in Visual Basic. Assignment, sometimes assignment seems to be kind of confusing to people, but it's actually a fairly easy concept. The basic assignment statement will always have the equals symbol, and you'll notice in this particular example that the equals symbol is between a memory location on the left hand side and some expression on the right hand side. The short definition of expression is anything that has a value. So in this particular case, of course, the number 1 is an expression because it has the value 1. So we take whatever is on the right hand side and we get its value, in this case 1, and we assign it to the memory location on the left. You don't want to read that equals. It's a mistake to think the word equals when you're reading that. You want to say something like number store is assigned the value 1, or number store is given the value 1, or the value 1 is assigned to number store. That's the way you need to think about that statement. Now the next line down is a very similar statement. In this case, of course, it says that we have to take the expression on the right hand side and do the assignment into number store, but the expression on the right hand side is a little more complicated. In this case, we have to evaluate that entire expression inside the red box. So we have to say 10 times number store. Well, what's the value in number store? Well, we know we just stored a 1 into it, so it's 1. So we say 10 times 1, and that is the value of the right hand side, 10 times 1, which is 10, of course. And we take that value and we store it into number store. So now number store has a 10 stored in it. The next statement again is a very similar situation, but a little bit more complicated expression on the right hand side. And again, we have to completely evaluate that expression before we do the assignment. So in this case, we take number store plus 2. Well, we have to say what's in number store. Well, there's a 10 in number store. So 10 plus 2, that'd be 12. And then we multiply that times number store. Well, what's in number store? Well, remember, 10 is in number store. We don't change number store by just saying number store plus 2. What we're doing is we're going to that memory location, number store. We retrieve the value 10. We add that to 2, and we get 12. And we haven't done anything with that 12 yet. We haven't stored it anywhere. And then we multiply that 12 times the value that's in number store. Well, we have to go retrieve number store again. Of course, the 10 is still there. So it's 12 times 10. That'd be 120. And so we take the 120, and finally we assign that to number store. The key idea here is that assignment does not take place until the entire expression is evaluated. And finally we come down to our message box statement, and we just concatenate together a string, number store holds colon. We concatenate that with the concatenation operator, the ampersand you see there, to whatever value is in the memory location named underscore. The value, of course, in this case, if we've been following along, is 120. So key idea is that the right hand side will always be a value, and the left hand side will always be a memory location. And of course that memory location has to be declared because we're going to use option explicit, which requires us to declare all our memory locations before we use them. This next slide is just talking about the message box. The message box basically has two forms you can use it. The very first form you see in this example basically says, let's just take the message box command and display something to the screen. So in this case, we're just displaying the value of this string concatenated onto number store. Well, in this case, our program, of course, is going to store 1 in number store for the first line, then 10 times whatever value is in number store, which would be the 1, so 10 times 1 is 10. So number store has the value 10. So we take the string number store holds colon, and we concatenate on to 10. And so message box would just print 10. So print number store holds colon 10 on the screen. You might notice that I put a space right after the colon inside my string. That will put the little space there before the number, so the number is not just smashed against the colon. The other version of the message box is a little different. The other version of the message box, you'll notice, is on the right-hand side of an assignment. That means that this message box statement you see here is actually an expression. It will put onto the screen, "Are you happy?" But it also is going to put onto the screen some specific buttons. It puts the VB yes/no buttons on the screen rather than just the OK box. Now, if we're going to put two buttons on the screen, we're going to want to know which of these two buttons the user has pressed. So this uses the message box is going to return a value. This thing is a value. The value will be whatever number is assigned to these two buttons, and right off the top of my head I don't know what those numbers are. It might be 1 and 2, it might be 10 or 20, but you can bet you could run this program and actually do a message box statement to print out the value of this memory location called message value, and it'll tell you what the values of the yes and no buttons are. That would be a good program for you to write, just to print out the value when the user hits yes, and then run it again and print the value when the user hits no, and you can find out then what those values would be. So again, the key idea here is there's two different ways you can use the message box. Now notice when you do use this second method of using the message box, you do have to put everything that follows the keyword message box, you have to put everything inside parentheses. So you have to remember to use those parentheses. Now notice in this first example, the parentheses are not required. Okay, thank you.